Hi, this is Jason Nickleby, Coordinator of Officiating Services with the Minnesota State High School League, and this is football officiating training tape number 2. Thanks for taking a look at the plays last week. Quite a number of things to consider: legal block below the waist, offensive holding philosophy, targeting, positioning, mechanics. Quite a number of topics that we can use in our pre-games when we begin our full slate of games this week. With training tape 2, some more considerations on the mechanics and philosophy side, as well as some rules pieces. So take a look at these, incorporate some of these pieces into your pre-games as you head into your first week of games this week. And good luck to everybody as we begin the 2022 season. So again, not picking on any one crew or official or team. We're just trying to learn from these plays. And again, you don't have to agree with everything that's said. Just use these as a platform to assist you in deciding what to discuss as you prepare for your games this week. So with that, let's take a look at some plays. Okay, in this one, I want to talk about offensive holding philosophy, which we talked about last week, and just our overall mechanics and how we handle these types of plays. So first of all, we have offensive holding that's called right as the play is coming to a conclusion. So let's go back through that criteria that we talked about last week, which is first question we need to ask ourselves, is the action at the point of attack? And I would say the answer is yes in this case. So you can answer yes, that the action was at the point of attack. If you answer yes to that question, then you move on to the next question, which was there a material restriction of the player being blocked? And I would say the answer in this case is no. If you look at the action on the receiver and the defensive back at the top of the screen here at about the 45-yard line, they're really just dancing in space, and then ultimately the player who was being blocked makes the tackle. So if he can make the tackle like this, they're especially so near the action or the blocking action, then we really should keep the flag in our pocket. So this is not material restriction. This is not a material effect on the player being blocked, and this is not one that we would want called. And umpires, just as a side note, we would want vision on that block right at the point of attack at the line. That block is actually probably more suspect by the left tackle than the one that's ultimately called. And further, line of scrimmage officials, you should probably have a look at that block by the left tackle as well, considering that we don't have receivers in our view. We should have vision on that block as well. I like how we stay behind the play and let it develop in front of us, kill the clock, put the ball down, make sure that we have someone there to take the ball, which we do, and then we can report the foul information to the referee, who makes a nice announcement. But just we need to really slow down our processing as it relates to offensive holding. They need to be quality fouls. This is not one that we want called because it doesn't meet that material restriction aspect. There isn't a material restriction in this case, and we would need to put this in a category, and I'm not sure you can put it in a category. You can't call it a grab and restrict, a hook and restrict, because ultimately the player was not restricted. He was able to make the tackle. So slow down our processing, go through that process of asking ourselves the question, was it at the point of attack, yes or no? If you answer yes, then was there material restriction? If you answer yes, what category? If you can put it in a category, then we can throw. So let's slow ourselves down, go through that process on each potential offensive hold, and I think we're going to find that when we slow down and really go through those steps, I think we're going to find that our foul quality and correctness will increase. Okay, on this one, we have a really nice example of use of philosophy in our judgment on catch, no catch, and then mechanics as well. And as you recall from last week, we talked about catch, no catch, the criteria, the rules, and our philosophy. And we have to have a body part down in bounds. We have to have control throughout the process of completing the catch. And then the third piece is an act common to the game. And remember, that's not in the NFHS rulebook. However, when we are using our judgment to piece together the rules pieces of catch, no catch, we should use that as a barometer to help us determine whether a catch took place, because at the end of the day, we do not want cheap turnovers. We want them to be legit. And if we don't have a chance to reach for a goal line, reach for a line to gain, turn up field, those kinds of things, if we don't have time to do that as a receiver, then we really didn't control it throughout the process of making the catch, and therefore it should be an incomplete pass. And if we evaluate this one based on that criteria and philosophy, you'll see that he does have a body part down in bounds, but control throughout the process. It's close, it's really tight. Again, when in doubt on these, we're going to call them incomplete. But the third aspect, an act common to the game, if you take a look at the replay here, you'll see that he barely hits the ground, doesn't have a chance to turn upfield, reach for anything, and the ball is already coming out. And so this is proper use of judgment and philosophy as it relates to catch, no catch by the line of scrimmage official here at the bottom of the screen. This is really well done. This is exactly how we want this type of play handled. And then finally, from a mechanics standpoint, we want you to stay home by the line of scrimmage until the pass is imminent. And in this case, we do. And then we even float backwards, which is totally fine. Let the play develop in front of you. And then we're in really good position to view this action. So this is really well done philosophy and judgment-wise by the line of scrimmage official. Also, our mechanics are very solid on this play as well. So a good example for us all to learn from as it relates to catch, no catch, as well as our mechanics for handling these plays at the line of scrimmage. Well done. Okay, on this play, we have excellent mechanics by the referee and clock management as well. So you see we have a fumble in the backfield here, and there's a pileup, and the referee kills the clock until he knows who has the football. And then as soon as he determines that the offense has retained possession, he winds the clock back up. So this is excellent mechanics to kill the clock. If we don't know who has it on a fumble, we don't know who's under there with it, kill the clock until we're certain, because ultimately if the defense ends up with it, we're going to have to stop the clock anyways. And so we need to do that from a clock management standpoint. Kill the clock till we're certain, because you see right there at the tail end there, it's possible the defense could end up with it. So we kill the clock. Umpires, we need you to dig on this. Get in there and figure out who has the ball. I like that we had a beanbag. That part was good, so we handled that well. But let's get in there and dig and determine who has it, and then communicate that with the referee. The referee will be standing outside the pile waiting for your decision or what you observe. You tell them the offense has it, white has it, black has it, whatever you're going to tell the referee. And then referees, as soon as you hear that the offense has it back, you need to do what this referee does, which is wind the clock back up. If the play clock has dropped below 25, we'll pump it back up without stopping the game. If it drops below 20, let's not start up the game clock without resetting the play clock to 25 seconds. So another consideration to have in a play like this. But overall, managed very well by the referee. Umpires just get in there, dig a little bit, and communicate with the referee. But I really liked our mechanics here, stopping the clock, figuring out who has it, and then winding the clock back up, and then another consideration is the play clock and making sure that that is where it needs to be. Well done here by the crew. Okay, this play has a number of things to discuss and think about as it relates to philosophy, mechanics, judgment, and rules as well. So let's take a look at the action on the quarterback and the passer to begin here. So first, whether something is a forward pass or not, or an actual pass. And if you look at Rule 231, Article 2, it talks about if we have contact on the passer, if we have the arm moving forward on contact, that would be a forward pass. So if we have forward arm movement here, which is really close, if this ball were to hit the ground and we deem that this is forward arm contact, it would be an incomplete pass. Now it's intercepted in this case, so no problem. But something that we need to have a conversation with line of scrimmage and back judge on is if the ball comes out wonky, it comes out rotating on its axis, not on its axis, but different than it would normally rotate, doesn't look like a pass, then it has a high potential to be a fumble, especially if the arm is not moving forward and he shot puts the ball. And if the ball hits the ground and as a line of scrimmage official or a back judge, we rule this incomplete, we can't go backwards. We'd much rather have you play it out as a fumble, get together and discuss, and then say, you know what, that arm was moving forward, that should have been an incomplete pass, and then you can change it to that. Of course, in this play, it's intercepted, so no big deal, we can go with that. The next piece to consider on the passer is what is roughing the passer, what is contact that's acceptable, and we need to remember a couple things. Remember that in the illegal personal contact rules, G, it says that we cannot make contact with an opponent, including a defenseless player, which is deemed unnecessary, excessive, or which incites roughness. And it talks about a defenseless player, and it specifically mentions that. So if you go to the defenseless player rule, which is Rule 232, Article 16, it says that a passer, and that's the very first one, a passer is defenseless. So if we make contact that we deem is unnecessary, excessive, or incites roughness, which I think we potentially have here, because you see this defender rise in the air and put his arms, hands with force into the quarterback's head, into the passer's head. And so I think with defenseless player protections, I think we absolutely could have a personal foul here. If we have a pass, I would be fine with roughing the passer as well for this high contact. So just something to consider. And from a mechanics standpoint, I think what will help us on this, referees and umpires too, what will help us on this is anytime we see a free defender, so they blitz through a gap, they get around the tackle as a defensive end, blitzing linebacker, etc. If they have a free shot or a direct line to the quarterback, to the passer, our vision as referee and umpires need to shift to that. That is our priority. Offensive holding is no longer the priority. We need to get our vision to the passer. And I think if we do that, we're going to have a much better chance of really accurately ruling on roughing the passer, on targeting, illegal personal contact, and so forth against the passer. So I think that's just a consideration we need to have here with that high contact and get our vision to that free defender, and I think we'll have the ability to make that judgment on this type of play. So line of scrimmage, back judges, lay off of these when it comes out really weird like this. Let the referee and umpire and/or umpire come in and wipe this out as incomplete, because what we don't want is having referees and umpires putting a beanbag on the ground and then line of scrimmage and back judge wiping it out as incomplete, because once we've done that, we can't go backwards. So just be careful on these line of scrimmage and back judge. Of course, this play was intercepted, no big deal. But if it were to hit the ground, we need to make sure that we have a very patient whistle when the ball comes out like this. So some considerations on roughing the passer, defensive player, what's a forward pass, and then our mechanics and how we handle passes that come out in a strange way. So tough play, a lot going on. So several things that you can discuss with your crew on how to cover and address a play like this one. Okay, some mechanics considerations on this play, and then some relatively new rules regarding this play situation. So we have a pass play with 20 some seconds to go in the second quarter. So obviously time is a factor. I like how we let this play develop in front of us, gives us good perspective, and then we come and kill the clock for the first down. But what we need to remember, clock is a factor here. So we need to be communicating as a crew. Under 2 minutes, we have clock option on fouls. And then we just need to be aware that clock is a factor at the end of the second and fourth quarter when the score is tight, as we have here. So this means when we're communicating this fact, this means we need to communicate that umpires, you're going sideline to sideline. We don't want to toss balls to the umpire. We don't want to toss the football to the umpire, because if the clock is still running, which it's not in this case, but if it were, and the umpire drops it, now we've wasted valuable time chasing the football on the ground. So umpires, you need to get on your horse, go sideline to sideline. When you get the ball from the side zone, come back into the inbound spot and look at the opposite line of scrimmage official, because they should be lining up with the other line of scrimmage official. That way you don't have to get to the inbound spot and turn around and look back at the covering official. It just will save you some time. If for some reason you can't get back to your normal position, just back off 2 or 3 steps into the defensive backfield for that one play, and that would be okay. But the other piece here, from a clock management standpoint, line of scrimmage, we cannot put the ball on the ground here. We need to hand the ball to the umpire, who can then take it into the inbound spot, look at the opposite line of scrimmage official, and put the ball down. So we just need to be aware of clock and what's on the clock, so that our mechanics are umpire sideline to sideline. We're handing him the ball, him or her the ball, and we're not throwing it around. And then we can't put the ball on the ground. Even if it is a first down, we don't want to do that. That takes up some precious time doing that. And then from a rules perspective, if you see at the end of the play, on the next play, which is first down, and we start the game clock, remember that we now have an exception by rule for the player positioned directly behind the snapper that can conserve time by intentionally throwing the ball forward to the ground immediately after receiving the snap, provided that it has neither been muffed nor touched the ground, and that is Rule 7.5, Article 2 exception. So take a look at that. Just a reminder, it used to be that they had to be under center. That's no longer the case. They can now take it from shotgun as long as they don't muff it or the ball doesn't touch the ground. They can throw it to the ground, and that would be a legal play, and move on to the next down, second down in this case. So some mechanics considerations, especially at the end of the second and fourth quarter, and then just a reminder on the rules piece. Okay, we have this one on here because it is an example of the rule change this year regarding a foul committed with less than 2 minutes remaining in either half. So the rule in question is 347, and that says that when a foul is committed with less than 2 minutes remaining in either half, the offended team will have the option to start the game clock on the snap. So in this case, you see that we have encroachment on the defense. We stop the clock. It's under 2 minutes. So the referee will make the announcement about the encroachment, we're going to enforce that. It's going to be a first down in this case. But now we have the clock option. So mechanically, we should go through the process that's outlined in the Mechanics Illustrated. And if we do this properly, it means the referee is not going to have to move from their spot. All they need to do is turn and look at each sideline. So the first question is to the offended team, so in this case, the offense, do you want the clock to start on the snap? And keep in mind, it's the clock option for snap is only on plays where the clock is running or will become running and they want it to start on the snap. They can't take a play that is already going to start on the snap and turn it into a ready for play situation where the clock would start. So for example, if the runner went out of bounds and we had a foul, they would not have an option to start the clock on the ready for play. There wouldn't even be a choice. It's just going to start on the snap. So in this case, we have a running clock that would become running again. Referee will turn to the line of scrimmage official on the offended team side, the offensive side, and say, do you want the clock to start on the snap? If so, they will use play pick B as shown in the Mechanics Illustrated. If they want it to continue running, they will use play pick C. If they indicate that they want it to continue running, now we turn to the offending team sideline, the defense in this case, and say, would you like a timeout? If we do, then we will signal stop the clock, or if they do choose that, we will signal stop the clock, and the referee would announce that a timeout has been charged to the offending team. So if we do that properly, referees should only have to look at each sideline, shouldn't have to move from their spot, and we ask, do you want the clock to start on the snap? Yes or no? If they say yes, then that's the end of the discussion. If they say no and they want it to run, we use that mechanic to indicate that they want the clock to go on the ready for play, in which case, if the other team, the offending team, has a timeout remaining, we need to ask them if they would like to use that to keep the clock from running on the ready for play and when it's said go on the snap. So a couple mechanics considerations relative to this. And remember, it's when a foul is committed. So it doesn't matter if it's a live ball or dead ball foul. It doesn't matter. The offended team has the choice to start the clock on the snap. On this one, we have a pass play towards the top of the screen. We hold the line till the pass is imminent. Again, we want to be stationary if possible when this takes place, but ultimately the back judge is going to be the primary on ruling on these types of plays, both catch, no catch, and then pass interference restrictions. So this is a really good no call. You see that as the ball arrives, there's some incidental contact, some hand fighting a little bit, but they both turn and make an attempt on the ball. And if you take a look at the rule, which is 7.5.10 and 7.5.11, it is not forward pass interference if unavoidable contact occurs when two or more eligibles are making a simultaneous attempt to move toward, catch, or bat the pass. And remember that the defense has just as much right to the football as the offense does. So sometimes we lose sight of that and we pin pass interference on the defense when sometimes the offense is playing more of a defensive role. And that sort of happens in this example. The defensive player has the best inside position, and the offensive player ultimately has to play a little bit of defense to make sure that the pass is not intercepted. So this is a nice job of not calling this. Remember, when we're talking about interference, we're talking about contact that interferes with the opportunity to move forward toward, catch, or bat the pass. And if we see four hands in the air, that typically means both players are making a legitimate attempt at the ball. And again, defense has just as much right. But just like offensive holding, fouls, we need to be able to put pass interference into a category. If we can't say, was the player restricted and what's the category, just like holding, then we can't put a flag on the ground. And something to keep in mind, the categories that we're talking about when it comes to interference is playing through the back, so a defender is coming over a receiver's back to play a pass, not actually trying to go and get the pass, or as both players are both making an attempt. Those are two different things. Hook and turn, so grabbing them at the waist and turning them prior to the pass arriving. Not playing the ball, meaning we just play contact, almost the old face guarding rule, but with contact. That's what we're talking about with that category. Arm bar or grabbing the arm. So sometimes they will grab their arm and not allow them to raise it in the air to make a catch. Cutoff. So this is a defensive player or an offensive player for that matter, just riding the receiver out of bounds, or they stop short and don't allow them to get to a spot that has potential for cutoff. And then early contact is a category 2, but we really need to be careful about that, because remember, not all contact is a foul. If it's incidental in nature, if they're both trying to make a bona fide attempt on the ball, remember that both players have the ability to do that. So again, pass interference, did it have a material restriction on the receiver or the defensive player, and then what category is it? And if we can't, same with offensive pass interference, we need to have a push off, we need to have creating separation, as any category that we can put it into with restriction would be enough for a foul. So let's make sure that we go through that process when evaluating these, and then mechanically, back judges, you're going to be primary on these with secondary responsibility coming from the line of scrimmage. But a nice job of no calling this. Very well done by the crew in this play. On this last play, I want to talk about our line of scrimmage mechanics, specifically crossfield mechanics. So when we have a pass completion and they get driven backwards like this a little bit, then what we need to do is officiate the end of the play. So we need to keep an eye on players, turn and face out of bounds as necessary. If we gain a first down, we need to kill the clock. And after we've done all that, those responsibilities, as we're moving up the field line of scrimmage, we need to look across the field to our other line of scrimmage official, because if you notice here, the receiver gets hit about the 36-yard line or so, and then gets driven back, and then you see the next play that the ball is at the 38-yard line. So we're off by 2 yards of forward progress on this, and it's because we didn't use crossfield mechanics. So I like how we stayed home, turned and pivot, officiate the catch, kill it for the first down. All that's good. Watch players, etc. The only thing we want to clean up on this is our use of crossfield mechanics, and this is anytime we have a receiver that's driven back like this, we want to look across, and it could be used on a running play too, but most of the time we're talking about pass plays. They get driven back, and we're trying to officiate the dead ball action. And then after we've done that, then just look across the field, find your partner, line up with them, and then umpire can take the spot from you at that point. So just something to clean up with our mechanics. Make sure we use crossfield mechanics on plays where the receiver is driven back to make sure that we get the most accurate forward progress spot. Okay, that will do it for training tape number 2. Again, a number of rules and mechanics considerations as we go through these types of plays. Best wishes to you all on your first game this week. I'm excited to get started. Hopefully you are too. Have a great weekend. Stay safe and healthy, and we'll talk to you next week.